Hi, my name is Paul Malott, and I'm the owner of Automations24, and we're in the business of helping businesses save time and money through automations.
You're watching Success, Motivation, and Inspiration, where we share interviews with incredible leaders who are crushing it in life and business.
Thanks for joining us here on Success, Motivation, and Inspiration. Good to have you, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Huge fan of the show.
Awesome. What inspired you to focus on AI for small business?
Oh, well, that's actually a very long story. I was a career professional for 20 years in procurement, and 5 years ago, I got into advanced procurement, advanced purchasing, where I was essentially buying very interesting technologies like augmented reality heads-up displays for vehicles, right? And through the procurement activity of learning what these things cost, I got familiarized with the technologies and the various technologies that are available for businesses. And as a nerd myself, I decided, hey, I'm going to deep dive some of these things. And I did. And I have some friends and family acquaintances that I recognized were needing some, we'll say, tools to support their businesses, right? All business owners wear a heavy hat. They have a lot on their plate. And I figured out a way through automations and integrations of AI to essentially help them. And that, lucky for me, right, opened up several opportunities for now what I do full time. And that's essentially integrate AI into small and medium businesses.
How did your background in supply chain and procurement shape your approach to AI?
Oh, great question. In procurement, it's really you're trying to squeeze the booger out of Abraham Lincoln's nose. And what I mean by that is every penny is worth it, right? And you're literally just trying to get everything you can in a negotiation. And that means you're looking at the supplier's internal processes, you're looking at their behaviors, their waste, and you're teaming up with them to collaborate with them really, and find a solution to drive that total variable cost down. And what that means is you're taking a holistic approach, right? You're kind of pulling all the gray area together, anything you can do to support the process and make yours cheaper, right? Your product or your service. And really through that, you get a really good view on what adds value to specific organizations, what becomes a value proposition for a company or a particular product. And through that, you kind of can walk backwards as to what activities are that company doing to drive that value add and drive that value proposition, and what can I do to help those activities. And that's really how procurement ended up being this overall, hey, I can do things with processes. I can come and digitize organizations, right? And I view procurement really as a mini CEO. When you're speaking internally to your leadership teams, you're speaking to them about the supply chain, right? And you're acting on behalf of your suppliers. And when you're doing that, it means you have to be intimate with all those problems and you have to have that bigger perspective. And so taking that bigger perspective and then coupling that with my research, right? My doctoral candidacy at the U of M Flint, really what I'm doing is adding that holistic approach from the procurement process and value adders and throwing it into digitization of a business.
Now, describe your perfect client, perfect target client, as far as maybe number of employees, industry, years in business, their revenue, whatever their targets are. Or just
Sure.
give me an exact detailed.
Sure. I love to say that I'm industry agnostic, but the reality of the situation is I grew up in Metro Detroit. So naturally, industrial manufacturing organizations and through my procurement experience are really where I'm able to just jump right in and immediately add value, right? Find those low hanging fruits with the high ROI. And that could be production of any widget, right? Or outsourcing of the procurement of any widget, any product itself, and really the size of the organization. It's agnostic because when we talk about processes, we're talking about anything from invoice processing, three-way match for goods receipts, purchase order issuance, and the digitization of it. So you really don't have to be specific to an industry. You're specific to the function within the industry and driving that, right? So with my background in research and procurement, generally the people that love working with me are the chief procurement officers and those CEOs because they understand the total variable cost that I'm discussing in terms of the process and what that's adding to it, right?
That makes a lot of sense. Now, over the years, I owned a cosmetic medical laser clinic, a company that manufactured bioidentical injectable research peptides, pharmaceuticals, had a telecommunications company, with over 250,000 customers a month hitting the website. With our telecom company, with the wholesale data procurement, the talk, text, and mobile data, billing at the thousandth of a cent increments, 0.0012 cents per megabyte versus 0.0013. When you're talking about 250,000 customers a month using fractions of a cent, could make a huge difference on the bottom line at the end of the month. Why is open source AI such a powerful tool for small business owners?
So the prevailing theory of business strategy is dynamic capabilities theory. And essentially, what that is organizations that harbor, leverage, and utilize and build dynamic capabilities. I hate to use the term and the definition, but it's a reality. To be dynamic, to be agile, and is what is making companies successful. And with small and medium businesses, when you take an approach like no-code, low-code integration to artificial intelligence, and then you include open source artificial intelligence, you're building a dynamic foundation by which you can then pivot upon and pivot upon with little to no risk. And when I say risk, I'm really talking about cost. So open source in this case is, you can think of it like the source code or the platform code is available to you to utilize as you wish in your business and specify to your business's needs. So open source, when included in your scenarios or your workflows appropriately, can be a very, very powerful tool that's very cost effective. And also, when you think of it like building blocks, it can be replaced easily with additional cost effective or more specific tools, right? So open source is very powerful in the sense that it's cheap. It means less risk. It's already been tried and tested by developers who do this for a living. They go out, they develop a particular tool, and then they make that tool available for everyone to destroy, right? To break. And then they fix it and they do go on and on and on. So it's really a good way for small businesses to cheaply and effectively manage their value proposition.
One of the things for us that we noticed with the telecom company, like I said, 250,000 customers a month at the website, guaranteed you could have the thing where we thought it was flawless. Somebody will break something almost immediately when you've got that many people testing every potential breakage point in the system there. That makes me think a lot using open source software or open source code. Makes me think a lot of, building a site on something like WordPress, where you can install a plugin where somebody has built a plugin to serve a specific, perfectly solve the problem. They've spent all of the time and money and stuff building this little plugin to just do it, whereas the thing was built from the ground up, and you had to hire a developer to go in and build something custom. Would be an absolute train wreck and also a whole lot more expensive. Huh?
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I like to think of it too like a toolbox. I mean, AI in general is this big toolbox and a big umbrella where, there's large learning models, there's optical models, there's different types of AI, and then there's different types of open source AI, right? And you can put all that in a toolbox and be able to pick and choose the right tool for the situation. And that's what makes it so effective. And couple that with Make.com, N8N, Zapier. These are low code, no code tools that really, and they literally means little to no coding. Developer knowledge needs to go into this. You can connect these tools now and build a really interesting workflow that essentially will learn from itself. And it's all about selecting the right tool for the job too. When you're a small business owner, it's hard, right? You have to admit it's hard. And information asymmetry exists where you don't know as much about the tool as the seller who knows about the tool. And you have to close that so that you understand what the heck the tool is doing, for one, and two, is it worth your time and effort to put into that? So open source makes that a heck of a lot easier to close that gap, because the knowledge is also available on it, right? It's basically an open book to go and learn from. People are afraid of risk when it comes to open source, but the reality is where you operate your system and behind whatever firewall you want to put it, that's where you're the one who can control that security, right?
You'll see on my Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, different stuff. If you leave a comment, whatever time of the day, it could be 3:00 in the morning, I am fast asleep, but you leave a comment, and we've got a make.comment or integration that goes through. It reads the description of the reel, then it reads the comment of the user, sets a custom, to get past the Instagram where I don't get kicked off there, sets a custom wait time from 0 to 300 seconds. And then I guess before that, it's got a yes or no, basically a coin flip of whether or not it's going to answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
Then it sets the timer. Then it's got a whole list of randomization things on what the tone is that it's going to reply to.
Yep.
So you could have somebody comment 1,000 times the exact same comment, and it's going to give them a little bit of different comment each time. But the whole goal is to just keep building nurturing that customer engagement.
Yeah, 100%. You are, Make.com is an incredibly powerful tool, and it serves as essentially the backbone for almost anything that my organization does, right? And the way I like to think about development now and in the future, you have a subscription platform, right? Anything digital product. You have a membership stack that you have to manage. Then just above that membership stack, in my mind, it's all these low-code, no-code integrations. The environment is becoming so niche that you need to have these specific ability to pull in the best of the best. And that's where that low-code, no-code comes in, so that you can pull it in. And then the logic that you described that you're automating there, that's incredibly powerful, because when you think about a business owner, I don't know what you value your hourly time at, but I think I'm pretty expensive. And when I consider the fact that if I was responding to 100 different messages in 100 different ways, how much time that would be for me, right? That's a large savings. And then now couple that with several automations in an organization, and especially the smaller ones, and you really start to free up the business owner's time to focus on where they're delivering their value, right? And that is the ROI. And a salesman, a car salesman, is going to be the handshake, right? Being able to have the conversation. So you're doing everything in your power. I am doing everything in my power to make sure that the business owner is doing only that, right? And then most business owners forget why they're in business. It's not to work themselves into the ground too, right? I mean, and I have a hard time stopping working. I like what I do. I love what I do. So it's hard for me to tone down, but I remember I'm working to provide a means for myself for life, to go live life. And when you're a business owner and you have that pride in what you do, and your product is essentially you, one of the things that I find is very hard to do is pull the business owners away from that. But automations is a powerful tool to do that, because you can show them that you can get the same amount of value with an automated process than what they would spend the 2-3 hours on chugging away to respond to everyone just to nurture those leads, right? And automations, again, are agnostic to industry. They're process and data specific. And what's getting super cool today is that you can use artificial intelligence in automations to clean up data too. So it used to be that data was, messy. We got to clean it up with our human hands first. Now we have these tools that will take the columns and format them appropriately. And now you can really speed up the time at which you're delivering, again, that value. You're focusing on what you do best, right?
We were talking before the show, a lot of our audience are older, very successful authors, entrepreneurs, motivational speakers, podcast hosts, business leaders who are, like I said, crushing it in life and business. But so many are afraid of AI, and they've been told, they've got some kind of a conspiracy theorist friend or somebody that thinks AI is going to take over the world. And what I explain pretty frequently, though, like ChatGPT is the biggest one that I run across, people just terrified to use. And told them, listen, artificial intelligence does not exist at this point. It's not a sentient being that knows everything. What it is combining the sum of all publicly available human knowledge into the best possible response for the question you gave it. So asking better questions generates a better response. Mm-hmm. Kind of like if you had a VA, a virtual assistant, working for you. If you bring in somebody that is low dollar, just really not trained at all, they kind of speak English, and you tell them, hey, listen, I want you to write a book for me, about my area of expertise. It's going to come out and be absolutely trash. But if you get somebody that's trained well, and then you say, okay, for the next 6 months, I want you to study everything that I've ever published, everything I've ever written, every interview I've ever been in. Your entire goal is to know me better than I know myself for the next 6 months. Now you ask them, okay, in my tone of voice, I need you to write a book. First, write me an article outline with these specific, write an article outline about or what they call a book outline. Now go through and write a chapter about each individual. Your quality is based on the request and what you set up.
Yeah. I mean, you explained the situation perfectly. I think of it like I'm talking to my 3 and 4-year-old daughter, right? They can do what I'm asking them to do, but if I'm not incredibly specific and I don't coach them through the process, they're going to go off the rails, right? And, AI is no exception. And you nailed it. AI is not out there creating knowledge. It is digital mimicry of human cognition, essentially. It's our try as humans to digitally create our brain power. And we do really good at pattern matching, but it's not creating things out of thin air, right? So as you mentioned, the way that you interact with it is incredibly important and really supports the results that you're going to get, right? So again, if I'm talking to my 3-year-old daughter and I say, please clean up after yourself, she may clean up something that's on the floor right in front of her. But if I don't give her any more than that, that's all that's going to be done, right? And if I don't specify that she's got a toy over there and Play-Doh stuck to the wall over there, then she won't know where to go. And so that's the art of prompting is a very real thing. And I'm a huge science fiction fan. And I believe, though, and I bring that up because I believe there are several books that have really laid out how prompting and cybergation and the idea of augmenting your own intelligence with artificial intelligence rather than assuming it's some sentient being or humanizing it. And, humanizing it naturally pulls us away from it, right? And the studies show that when we give artificial intelligence a name, we're automatically putting ourselves in the human area and AI in this other area, and we become enemies almost, right? And the reality is we just need to treat it like a dang tool. That's all it is. And it's a tool that we have to be careful with, right? I love the proverb, when you give a man a hammer, every problem becomes a nail. And I love that because people are out there now saying AI is lovely, and it is, but it's not the end all be all solution. It's not a magic wand. And those people that wield AI are not Harry Potter. It's a complex strategy. It's a strategic move that businesses or people need to make, right? And that comes in having to understanding how to use the tool. Don't bet your strategy on a tool when you don't know what you're doing. That'd be like me having a hammer and thinking I'm a carpenter.
It's amazing how frequently it changes. We've been using AI that was not publicly available since 2016, 2017. And it's amazing what it can do for you. Like you said, for example, we were talking about the Instagram comments, where when I had it go out and research, I have it pull publicly available data about everything I've written and said and whatever, and then tell it to respond in my tone of voice. It cracks me up. There's been people having long drawn out multi-hour arguments with the AI because it sounds like me, and I get done going, oh no, this stupid thing was fighting all night with somebody that thought that they were having a fight with me. I mean, that's not often, but it's amazing how often I've talked to people that go, I love that you respond to all these comments. I really love what you said to me about, and I have to look at that and I go, listen, that was not me. That was just a tool we put together here.
Well, that means really you implemented it right, though, because I think one of the challenges businesses have is that people realize that there's a value here. And, the data, the research says there's value in automating and artificial intelligence and something like 30% cost improvements in processes. And that's massive when you talk about squeezing, the penny. And, but if you just go and automate something and you don't get authentic results, if you don't prompt it correctly, if you just automate it and don't include the human in the loop approach, then you're going to have these situations where people are not impressed with your automations and they're not driving value. And instead of arguing, it's getting very offensive, and it's not commenting, it's actually challenging your people and, not doing what it's supposed to do. And unfortunately, I find that, because these things are changing so often, they're becoming more accessible, right? And that something I study right now is the Dunning-Kruger impact, that AI, the moderation of AI and the Dunning-Kruger impact. And basically the Dunning-Kruger impact is when you're incompetent in something, but you're overcompetent in doing it, right? They're overconfident in doing it. I'm sorry. So AI, if you can imagine me, I have no math skills. right? I use calculators and Excel my whole life. But now imagine I start using artificial intelligence to process all of the math. At some point, I may believe, if I don't keep myself in check, I may believe I'm a mathematician, and that'd be totally wrong, right? And so you have, because of the accessibility of these tools, the rate of change, the risk isn't necessarily now in money. It's now combined with time and money, time that leads to money, because people are going to start, they are already implementing automations and artificial intelligence where they don't need to, where they're not providing the right level of prompt, the right level of detail. And that's dangerous, right?
This interview is sponsored by Newswire magazine. We celebrate the entrepreneurs and thought leaders shaping the future, those who don't just adapt, but innovate, who inspire others to think bigger, lead boldly, and create lasting change. Only a select few are featured in Newswire magazine, and for those who earn a place on the cover, the opportunities are unmatched. Your story shared with a global audience, your achievements celebrated on national billboards, reaching millions. Every leader has a story. Every vision deserves a platform. Who will rise to the top? Stay tuned. You're witnessing greatness unfold.
Hey, welcome back to Success, Motivation, and Inspiration. Paul, it's good to have you back here. Let's talk real-world application. Can you share a success story where a small business client used AI to win big?
Oh, sure. There's a lot of them, actually. And it's not just the big wins. It's really a culmination of a lot of small wins and a lot of low-hanging fruit, right? When I talk about automating, we're not just automating these big end-all, be-all tasks. It's something as simple as a three-way invoice match, right? Where you get an invoice that gets sent to a Gmail, and the Gmail automatically is parsing. The automation is using artificial intelligence to read the PDF and parse it out. And then in the background, you're matching that to the goods receipt, you're matching that to the purchase order or the raw material. And those things, right, they don't seem like a big win unless you're dealing with it every day. And those things are saving 5 hours daily of several clients' lives today, right? And we're talking about these companies that get 10, 20 invoices a day, and they have purchase orders that are 100 plus. But when they're automatically matching and you're only looking for the variables that are missing or incomplete, it's a huge win, right? And that's just, a back end. Then there's the social media aspect. And you, again, brought up a really good example with using automation to support responses and interaction on social media. There's no way that any entrepreneur can have the social media presence that is demanded of them today without automations. That's a fact, right? And then the quality of the social media and getting the right impressions, getting the right click-through, that is also a challenge, right? So automation in social media and lead generation is huge. I find that most small businesses and medium businesses, that's where they're spending a lot of their time: customer relationship management, lead prospecting, lead enrichment, lead personalization. And again, it's all about saving time and converting that into money. And because we've done 150 plus automations for various industries now, we're very confident that not only are we saving the time there, but we're putting out a exact match to what that person's voice would be on the social media platform, right? So things that we offer are like social media presence automations, where we're essentially posting reels and comments and AI videos of the person's, doppelganger, right? The person's clone. Those are really high value because a lot of these companies haven't been doing something like that in the first place. They focused on Facebook or Google, Google My Business, and they haven't been able to get the real breadth, right, of the media outlets available. And so those things are just small wins that really convert over time, right?
Absolutely. And what are the top 2 or 3 tasks that you would recommend automating first with AI?
I mean, that's not agnostic, right? But I would say that social media falls in there definitely, because nobody knows you exist if you don't tell them you exist. And the old adage that nobody thinks about me as much as me, is so true, right? I could be here doing my best and my damnedest to be the best that I am. But if I'm not communicating to the world what I'm doing, nobody's going to know, right? I cannot rely on other people to be my word of mouth for me until I start demonstrating that I can make remarkable products, right? Something that people are going to make a remark about. So, I mean, I literally, if nobody's doing social media, I'm highly recommending to these folks because it's an easy win. It's an easy way to get eyes on your business. Then it's look internal. It's where are you spending your time? And it really depends on what type of, is it a product or a service, right? If it's a product, it's about development of the product. A lot of business owners spend their time developing the product, honing the product. And we're working with them to say, okay, where's your low-hanging fruit in the process of development? Where's your low-hanging fruit in the process of delivery of that product? And the same thing with services, right? People calling and scheduling for lawn care, lawn maintenance. We've got several automations that are VAPI AI call operators that do the scheduling for them. And you wouldn't believe how many people have 20 plus employees in lawn maintenance, and they're still the owner picking up the phone, right? And they're picking up the phone anytime, anywhere. And just to give that time back to them, that's honestly where I'm hearing the most positive feedback, because people are amazed that they don't have to do that anymore. And the results are as good, if not better, than what they were getting, right? And I'm also, I have to say this, I'm also, a purchasing guy for life. So supplier selection and automating that process, automating supplier scraping, right? Supplier search and availability. Those are things that I'm keen to because I like that space. And they also have a lot of impact on small business because you're left with a business case. Do I do this internally? Do I outsource it? How can this be done? And that's perfect for my purchasing experience, right? The business case development, the assumptions for what it's going to cost in total to bring these parts in-house. So I tend to want to go down that rabbit hole with business owners, and I let them push me out of it or lead me where they need me, right?
And now you've published a book called Unleashing the AI Cashflow Machine. Is that something, are you mainly just available as far as helping somebody with the coaching side of it? Or are you available to actually come in and implement these tasks specifically for
Automations24 comes in and we implement and write out these automations and do all of the task management, creation, and maintenance right afterwards. So that's really, I'm glad you asked that question, because when I made my transition from a procurement professional in Fortune 500s to entrepreneur, I struggled with that. I wanted to consult, but I also wanted to take action, and consulting is one thing, to be able to give my opinion and be valued as a subject matter expert. But when you get where the rubber meets the road, that's where I started to have my own personal pleasure. Like, oh my gosh, I have a value proposition. I can really get that traction for these people. So what I'm saying here is I love being in the trenches, right? My studies are in strategy, but I love getting in there and automating. I love getting in there and upskilling, because that's what it's about. Where the future's headed. You talked about a rate of change earlier. And when I've heard from smarter people than me, 30 years and 3 is what we're going to see technologically, right? And I believe it. And the only way we're going to be able to accept that as small business owners is upskilling. So I spend a lot of my time working with the owners and their employees to consult and teach, right? Webinars, workshops, but also we're writing the standard procedure. We're in there doing the automations themselves, and having that hands-on experience really makes it easier to teach too and do the consulting part.
What is your typical, I'm sure that's something like, we talked about the branding side of this before, probably like walking into a car dealership and saying, I need a car. How much is it going to cost? They say, well, what kind of car do you need? I just want you to tell me how much does a car cost? Okay, dude, do you need a Ford Pinto? Do you want you want the Lambo sitting over in the corner here? What are you looking for? So this may not even be a relevant question to you, but to have somebody work with you, what type of a budget should they have to be able to bring you in as a contractor to set?
No, that's a really good question, because I've been trying to address that by productizing the service, right? Productizing as much as I can of the automation. So ideally, when we make one automation for a company, we're not doing it specifically in isolation for that company. It's something that's going to have value elsewhere, that with minor tweaks, we can make it unique enough, but still be powerful, right? So we're not emulating and copying the same process organization by organization. It's unique. It has value add, drives that organization's value. But through the productization of it, my services generally go from $500 to $3,500. And what you're buying essentially is development hours. So, and I always suggest start with working with the bell of the ball. Do your best, work with ChatGPT to understand what it is you think you want, right? Talk to this thing, prompt it, ask it specifics about your business without giving it your social security number. You'll be, and it won't, go sell your information. You won't lose your value prop, but familiarize yourself with it. So when we start engaging, you're not coming in and asking for the Corvette at the Pinto price, and I don't have to reduce that information asymmetry for you. You've already done that, and you have an idea of, okay, I only think I might want 5 hours a month. And that's easy to do. And 5 hours is massive automations, believe it or not, right? So between 500 and 3,500.
That is ridiculously less expensive than I'd expected. I cannot imagine that you would not give $3,500 worth of value if you're a small business that's just barely struggling to survive. Like talk about the lawn care guy answering the calls over and over and over again. If you could implement that and have that done for between $500 to $3,500, that's seems like a really good ROI as far as your time goes.
Yeah, it's funny. It's really a challenge because when you try to be competitive in the digital space, and especially in a space that's newer like automations, it's more and newer to the general public, we'll say, people tend to price themselves high, and they tend to think that because I charge $5,000, that's the real value, right? And for this process, and I think that's misleading. Honestly, I believe that the basis of these automations, these no-code, low-code tools, the capability and the accessibility of these tools right now allow me to, and my team to do this at a level where the margins are acceptable at 500 to 3,500. And acceptable means that I'm respecting that business owners also have to employ their value for something else. But at $3,500, you will get essentially a full development team of mine. And that is a fantastic deal. And especially when you think about the dynamic capabilities and interchangeability when you talk about the tech stack and simply being able to change out OpenAI with DeepSeek should you choose to, right? Or make those decisions. That's something that, as you alluded to earlier, companies spend a lot of money just to figure out the nuances of, right? And so to be able to offer it and then work with a company, it ends up being a partnership where we both win. Right.
Now, are you available to work as basically like a virtual CTO, or is that something where they just pay you as they need a change done, or is that something you're on a retainer for a monthly basis?
It's a monthly retainer basis is how the operation works. I myself have done CTO work, CXO work, and actually currently right now I work for a beverage organization as a CTO. But essentially it's a pure product subscription. So just like a SaaS model, you'd sign up for Automations24 for a basic unlimited plan or flexible plan. And you're essentially getting an IT team that's going to build you either bespoke, custom developed something, right? You want a platform to manage and put people together on, we can build that. You want very specific back-end automations, we can build that too. And so what it ends up being is, and it's actually a way to reduce that information asymmetry too, is to combine your powers, so to speak, shake the hands and develop a statement of work together, right? It's more of a collaborative effort rather than you came on and you subscribed to me, now you can use my tool. You subscribe to Automations24. Our developers are now your developers solving your real world problems.
Now, this is something also that I know a lot of people worry about as far as hiring a virtual or some type of a remote employee. Mm-hmm. Once somebody gets done paying you, if they pay you for the next year, they've got everything set up perfectly, and then they're going, hey, we're a little tight on funds. I mean, that obviously should not happen if you're crushing and helping them buy back their time and increase their business. But if somebody stops paying you, Can they come back later, 6 months, a year later, once something's changed and be able to rehire you again? Or do they lose all that automation you've set up?
Oh yeah, the automations don't go anywhere, right? And honestly, if anybody's in that position, I've not been asked that question before, and I think it's great. So I'm going to answer from my heart. Somebody's in that position. I've been there, right? I understand what it's like to be scraping at the bottom of the barrel and busting your butt and working 14 hours a day for nothing, right? And I get it. And so I just highly encourage you to talk to us about it, because I think there's a flexible plan or a flexible way we could address that so you're not losing this capability, right? The last thing any business owner should do is give up on something that's driving results. And I think you said it, right? You stole my first answer right from me. It's when you implement this stuff, you'd be surprised at how well it works, right? And so you're going to take away the risk of running into situations where you need to stop subscriptions and so on. But should you do that, automations, they go nowhere. Once it's set up, it's set up. They need maintenance because APIs break down, integrations change, Google Mail changes their requirements, Make.com changes something, and those need to be maintained. But again,
customer changes their Instagram password.
Yeah, but exactly. Instagram password changes. And, so those are things that we charge as in our packages, right? As a part of our package, the monthly maintenance. But should you run into a situation where you can't afford that for 6 months, we don't go and delete your automation and all the key details for it. In fact, I think we'd have a more impactful approach and be looking to solve problems with you. What could we do different, right? Rather than, ooh, nobody wants to see that. I just personally don't want to see any business owner struggling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If somebody's watching this right now on Amazon Fire TV, or even if you're featured in Newswire magazine and they're looking at having you work with their small business, I see on Automations24.com, you've got a place to book a free discovery call. Mm-hmm. Is that something we could put at the bottom of the Newswire magazine article, where when they get down, they can actually go through and book that call or book that discovery call to see how you can help them, or if you're even a good fit?
Yeah, I would. And I'd love to give you a referral for that too.
If you're watching this right now on Amazon Fire TV, pause the show, scroll down, click the link. There's on newer smart TVs, you can click that and open it up directly on your smartphone. Click that, book a discovery call with Paul. I think this could be a really good thing. You can learn a lot about how they can potentially help your business. You're basically helping a small team level the playing field with billion-dollar companies with all of the automation and stuff that you've got, replacing massive office buildings full of employees that are doing these tasks that you can just replace with AI, right?
Yeah, I mean, the reality of the situation is that smaller companies are where innovation grows. Smaller companies are what innovation is, really. And when you look at a company like Icon.me, they're the AI commercial company right now. I think in the Super Bowl, there was maybe 3 of their commercials. That's 8 people, and they have over $100 million a month MRR. That's insanity. But the only thing that's making it capable is artificial intelligence and smooth, strategic, smart automations. And when you talk about leveling the playing field, it's real. It's a true value proposition to be able to pivot as a small company and adopt technologies that are going to drive that value and enhance your value proposition. Where in the same side, there's 10 people in a room at Joe Blow Corporation arguing about the same process for 6 months before they can even start to use that first version of OpenAI, right? And that speed, that agility, I believe, is a huge value add and strategic advantage for small companies moving forward. Our ability to adapt and use the digital tools to drive our value is what's going to separate us from the bigger guys even further.
One thing that I'm loving about this conversation is it is so irritating to interview somebody that's an expert on branding or marketing, whatever the thing is, and you start asking them for tips and they say, oh, here's the biggest thing, the most important thing is what's a tool that you should be using? Well, the most important thing is grab a copy of my book.
Yeah.
Go to the link here and here's a copy of my book. Oh, cool. Well, how do you solve this problem? Oh, that's all covered in my book. Just go ahead and buy a copy of the book right now. But that being said, I love you're sharing a ton of great information here.
Thank you.
Again, if you're on Amazon Fire TV right now, pause it, scroll down, click the link, buy a copy of Unleashing the AI Cashflow Machine. Looks like it's $7.99 on Kindle, or you can get a paperback or hardcover for not a whole lot more than that. What are a few open source AI tools that every entrepreneur should know about right now?
The bell of the ball is ChatGPT for sure. I think a lot of people, well, the last time I did a presentation, I did a workshop for local chamber of commerce, and I asked how many people there was maybe 45. How many of you use ChatGPT? They all raised their hands. And then the next question was, how many of you use it daily and off more than an hour a day? Everybody brought their hands down. Now, I don't think in South Carolina we're on the cutting edge of technology. That's one thing. But I do think that that's probably representative of a lot of folks today. And so I highly encourage prompting ChatGPT daily. This is a free tool. You don't need access to the $20 version. You don't need access to the $200 version to be able to prompt this thing and get valuable results. That's tool number one. Tool number two is a tool called Perplexity.ai, similar to OpenAI or ChatGPT, in that it's a large language model and you prompt this model. But the exception to Perplexity is that it's trained on up to the minute information. So if you're familiar with ChatGPT, the model is trained and then released, and it has a date at which the information is cut off, and the model doesn't refer back or to things after that date until you have a new version. Perplexity is different in that it's a RAG model. It goes out and it searches for information today and will pull it in for you to utilize as you wish. And it's very good it has a little thing in there that you can click where you can specifically search socials. You can search Reddit, Instagram, Facebook for trending topics, and it's very valuable. A couple little hidden clicks, but it's free. And then the third one I use extensively for research and copywriting, and that's called SciSpace, SciSpace, or typeset.io. And essentially, it is a research tool that looks through and evaluates based on your input. It'll provide context to your input. So if you have a philosophical question that you want to go down the rabbit hole on for the next 2 hours, that's what I would turn to as Typeset, because it will bring in different contextual knowledge to that particular prompt that you gave it. So if I want to learn more about the Dunning-Kruger effect and artificial intelligence, all I do is type in the Dunning-Kruger effect in AI, and it will provide me with the latest industry journals, scholarly journal articles, and it gives you hundreds of them with the citations, with the conclusions of the article. And that's very powerful when you're trying to understand a topic in full. And we're all bombarded with data. So half the problem that I find is, right, how do you start? Where do you start when there's so much, right? So those three tools with AI, good spot to start.
What is your favorite tool right now for the digital AI clone, video clone?
Oh, digital AI video clone is HeyGen, HeyGen. I think it's a super powerful tool for humanizing text to speech. And if I want to clone myself, it's very good if you have enough videos of yourself, right? So all this is back to your original comment about prompting and giving it data to use. Any of these tools won't be useful if you don't have prior videos. It's not just going to know what I look like and know my mannerisms, right? I have to feed it a lot of information. But I find that HeyGen reproduces me and my mannerisms almost to a T, right? And then for voice, just voice, so like a calling, if you want to work on cold calling or scheduling, 11 Labs is very good for voice cloning.
I'm making a note of all these, and I thought I was kind of the AI guy as far as been using this since 2016, 2017. I am learning a whole lot from you.
I appreciate that.
Just stuff that I didn't know, tools that I hadn't ever heard of before. Paul, man, this has been an absolutely incredible interview. I really love all the value that you've shared here. What is your final thought or final piece of advice for our viewers or people reading this in the magazine?
Really, don't be scared of artificial intelligence, right? Understand that it's just a tool. It's one of many tools, right, in your toolbox. that you as a small and medium business owner should use and put effectively to your disposal. I think just simply not trying a tool because you're afraid of it isn't going to work, especially when technology is moving so quick. You need to have the brain really of my 3 and 4-year-old daughters, where you're curious. Be curious about AI. And as you are more and more curious, you're going to do your best at shrinking that information asymmetry. And when you know those tools better by just trying, by experimenting with them, experimenting with the cheap ones with little risk, then you're going to be far more confident in the decision and the tools that you do choose when the time comes. You'll be confident in knowing that the result's going to be effective for what you're looking for. You'll know what you want to automate and include in AI, and you really know that what you're doing is driving that value proposition rather than throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks.
Perfect, man. This has been an incredible interview. I appreciate your time today, Paul, and just thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's been awesome.
Thanks for watching Success, Motivation, and Inspiration. This episode was designed to help you level up. See you next time.